Welcome to the Giovanne Show, where real stories meet real solutions. I'm your host, Giovanne Schachere. I'm a social worker, entrepreneur, family man, and advocate for change. From the streets of LA and Seattle Central District, this is the space where we talk about resilience, culture, creativity, and the systems that shape our lives. Every episode, I sit down with voices you need to hear, from community leaders and social workers to artists and innovators, people who are making an impact and challenging us to think differently. So, whether you're here for inspiration as a social worker or advocate for change, insight, or just a conversation that feels real, you're in the right place. Join us live. Make sure to subscribe at Schachere.com for updates, and join us live on YouTube and everywhere else you listen and watch. This is more than a movement. This is more than a podcast. It's a marathon. So let's get it.
Today on
The Giovanne Show. Today, we're talking about something a lot of people live through, but not enough people talk about. What it really means to start over.
Being an immigrant is not the same as a tourist. It took me 3 years to find my first professional job. Our silence, can be actually an insult for other people who rely on the message.
This episode of The Giovanne Show is brought to you by Misty's Adult and Family Services, currently serving in 2 locations, that's Washington State and California, changing lives by not only providing hope, but also housing support, case management, and community with social services and access to food and financial resources. Don't forget to subscribe to Schachere.com, SCHACHERE.com. Again, that's SCHACHERE.com to check out the latest blog updates on The Giovanne Show for behind-the-scenes stories and the latest from the social services king himself, Giovanne Schachere. Now let's get into the show.
Welcome to the Giovanne Show. Today's guest is Solveiga Jaskunas, and our theme today is immigration, inclusion, and the power of belonging. From the front lines of housing and justice to the boardrooms and beyond, this is the Giovanne Show. I'm your host, Giovanne Schachere. Today, we're talking about something a lot of people live through, but not enough people talk about. What it really means to start over. To build a whole new life in a new country, new system, new everything, and still find your voice when no one's speaking your language, literally or figuratively. Our guest today knows that story firsthand. Born in Lithuania, now based in the United States, she's a human resources expert, career coach, and founder of Solveiga Consulting, where she helps immigrants and international professionals not just get hired, but get heard. She's here to talk about how we build inclusion, how we show up authentically, and how to belong without losing who we are. Solveiga, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Giovanni, what an introduction. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Yes, the only thing that I started my consultancy that is called an Immigrant Voice in HR. And yes, at the time I started, yes, I felt actually uncomfortable myself with my own voice. But I thought that it's important to share a message for other people who feel the same way.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So let's start right there. The
Sure.
journey, right? How do we get there? What was life like growing up in Lithuania? And what pulled you to want to make the move to the United States?
I grew up in the Soviet regime, so that was definitely very different than being in the States. As a kid, probably going to the moon seemed, easier than coming to travel anywhere else because our freedom, ended at the house, basically at our house, and people even in the families didn't talk about Lithuanian history. I didn't know even about my own family history because if you find out as a kid and when you tell somebody else, then you it might be the last time your parents see you. So I grew up in very autocratic regime, but also like I experienced my first independence. Not so many people live in the lives when we see the first independence in the country. So that independence movement was really fascinating and exciting. And of course, during that time after independence was exciting, but we also had this economical recession as well. But so when I came to the States, I already had degree in industrial psychology. I came because I met my husband, who's an American, and he told me, let's go to check it out. And of course, checking out sounds good, but being an immigrant is not the same as a tourist.
Yes.
Um, and so, yeah, I came in 2002, so some times ago, yeah.
Wow, 2002.
Mhm.
Wow, been here quite some time, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's been quite a journey. When you first got here, what were those early days like? What was it that you expected, and what was different?
We came soon after September 11.
Ah,
So it was economy was really bad. At first, like even we looked at job in Chicago and nobody was hiring. People were just laying off, or economy was very unstable.
yeah.
But yeah, so the beginning was definitely hard. And I when I came to the States, I also thought my English is quite good. I really thought it's quite good.
Mhm.
I thought people can understand me, but when the reality was just different, sometimes people just walk away and they say, I didn't understand a single word. They say, like, I
Wow,
don't even understand how you get hired here.
wow.
So things like that was really difficult. And when it took me 3 years to find my first professional job, the first, like, I didn't get a single interview, even like, if I had a master's degree,
Hmm.
because employers didn't see that, they didn't know anything about education in my country. And but when I started getting I enrolled in my second master program in human resources. And then when I started getting interviews, at the beginning was really exciting, because I thought, oh, like now my dream is going closer because I'm getting phone calls. But then actually it was my dream, instead of getting closer, seems getting farther, because when my interviews ended after the first question, or when my voicemails will never get returned,
Mm.
or like you go to the interview and then you see that people are not interested as soon as you start talking. That was really painful. And then like I felt like at that point I didn't know if I will ever be able to compete. Hmm.
Wow, wow, that's really disheartening. I mean, I feel like the American dream should come with a disclaimer. Like, warning, there's a lot of caffeine and therapy that's going to be needed because of the experience here. Like, it is quite a mess. But was there a specific moment when you realized, like, you do belong here and you have something to offer?
It got better when I started working professional job, but truly, like I think, when I felt actually almost like recently I was not feeling like I'm truly belong.
Mhm.
When I start helping others, Because when I start interviewing others, I've realized that a lot of other immigrants make the same mistakes that I was making.
Yes.
Like not telling our own story, not giving good examples, not showing a value, bringing, underselling ourselves. And so when I started helping others, and when I saw that I can help, and I saw that the people can get jobs, the first jobs, to get promoted, it felt really rewarding. So it's really nice to achieve your own success, just getting jobs you want, getting promoted. But when you see that you can help other people to succeed, that it really feels rewarding. And then like recently, as I said, like when I start speaking in the conferences, like in the past, like speaking was the worst thing for me ever. But now actually it almost like empowered me, because I've realized, yes, you don't need to be perfect. And then, yes, being that talking about immigrant experiences is important and is needed.
Yeah.
And yes, I want to change that negative narrative that exists about immigrants, and to show that being an immigrant is a very challenging journey. It's very difficult, can be really painful, but experiences that humbles you, experiences that teaches you, experiences that inspires you and helps you to help others better. And it opens your perspective, because you need to learn to think differently in a new country. You get to work with people very different than you, and your world actually, it expands, it doesn't diminish. So I want, to show that no matter what people are saying, that really being an immigrant is nothing to be ashamed about. It's really to be proud, because you have to learn to live in an environment that is much more difficult. And to do that, you have to find strength, hope, and courage, and develop qualities very good and needed for yourself and for others.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of us are immigrants. I mean, there isn't a lot of people here, there's not a lot of people here who are, just their whole family. You just trace it back, right? You can see that we're all brought here from somewhere else. And except for, maybe Native Americans, and, that, leave it up to whoever, right, to figure that out, and depending on your faith and all of that, right? So, it really becomes more and more irrelevant, because there's so many explanations for so many things. Why are we, treating somebody differently because they come from a different part of the world? We're all living in the one world, right? So I feel like that also helped you probably figure out your purpose and mission, right? Like being able to have those experiences. You didn't just rebuild your life here, you turned your story into your purpose, right? Help immigrants to understand that they do belong here as well, and that it's really important for them to tell their story. And it's important, I think, not just for immigrants, right? It's important for human beings sometimes. Therapeutic for them to be able to leave their story, tell their story, have it written down in a book. Sometimes people do that, right? But when did you decide that you wanted to help other immigrants and international professionals find success in the workplace?
So when I started interviewing others, I realized that, as I said, like a lot of people are making the same mistakes, and I thought like I can help them, because in some ways going through so many rejections, it teaches you. And and then plus when I started interviewing others, I could compare, people, and I thought like so when I started mentoring, and that was really rewarding. I never considered like being a voice or speaking at the conferences, because as I mentioned, speaking was always like, I always had a fear of public speaking. It made, my voice, sometimes it will be times that I couldn't even say a word. It will take me time to say it. I suddenly start stuttering, stumbling over the words, and it made me feel, my voice shaking. I felt really imperfect. So speaking at the conferences or on the stages about immigrant experiences, so even on the podcast, I never considered.
Yeah.
And it almost happened by accident, or like, I don't know, by somebody's I don't know, courage.
Divine intervention, huh?
Yeah, a little intervention because a few years ago, I met one person and he told me, Solveiga, for you to be successful and to help your immigrants more successfully, you have to be visible.
Hmm.
You have to be a speaker, a thought leader, influencer, and I can help you. Come to my podcast.
Yeah.
And I realized that this is like all like great suggestions, but I told that this is really great suggestion, but this is not for me.
Hmm.
And yes, when I got asked question, why not for you?
Yes.
And I had a lot of answers. I don't like my own seeing myself on the camera. I stumble, stutter. I feel uneasy. My story is only an immigrant story. There are so many other immigrant stories.
Yeah.
And then this person said, why you just think about it? And I said, okay, I can think about it. And what it ended that as soon as our conversation ended, he introduced the team and he said, I met Solveiga. She has an incredible story. Let's do a podcast. And again, I wrote to everybody, this is not for me. I really feel uneasy in front of camera. But what happened when we recorded a conversation and when I saw it, I thought this is, completely disaster because I saw how imperfect I was. I was nervous. I wanted to project confidence for other immigrants, was zero confidence. I was speaking so fast, and then suddenly you see all the words you mispronounce, all the mistakes you make, and you think this is how you ruin your career. No way I get clients. And of course, I didn't get a single client after this podcast. But what happened, I started getting messages from other immigrants who telling, please continue. You talked about stereotypes so openly, and those conversations are important and needed. We never have a consultant or trainer who sounds like us in organizations. We never have conversations about immigrant experiences in the workplace, and that is so important. And then they told the stories, and some of the stories I knew it, and then I realized that at the time I had about 1,000 people in my network, and only 2 immigrants were doing videos.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were had perfect English, and both of them were very confident. And I've realized that many immigrants are like me, that lack that confidence, make mistakes no matter how long they live, and those stories are missing. And then I've realized, I talked with my mentor and I said, look, how can, other people say be a voice for us. And I said, how can I do that when I don't even like my own recording? And this experience was completely, horrible for me, seeing my own video. And then he told me, Solveiga, if not you, who will? And think about when Alvin Ailey, when he created his dance company, he did it because nobody else did it. And think about the people who need to hear your message today. And also he told me that this genre is going to be difficult. It's hard to talk about stereotypes in the United States. It's not easy. He said you can expect to get a lot of backlash. Some people will hate it. Some people will support it. I will be there for you and understand that you don't need you just do it because there is somebody, your message will be important for somebody else. And that message really resonated. I've realized, that yes, there are all these people who feel the same way. And then starting first speaking and writing, applying to the conferences. The first everywhere I applied, I get rejected. Because nobody saw me as a speaker. They look at my videos and they says, who's this person, But then I got invited a year ago to my first conference, Expat Women Conference. People really liked it. And from there, I got invited to the Global HR Conference and conference in Lithuania, Women in Tech, Society of Human Resources. And so now, yes, it's unbelievable in some ways. And yes, it showed me that, yes, and I got better. I got more confident, as you can see. I still a lot of to learn, but I also now know that our silence, can be actually an insult for other people who rely on the message. And yes, maybe I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. But there are some people who my message benefit. That all that matters.
Yes, and that's really amazing. I mean, having employers recognize diversity as something that's important in the workplace is instrumental, to really just make sure that diversity is something that employers understand and not just a snack at the holiday party, right? Like you have different snacks at the holiday table. No, it needs to be a lot deeper. It needs to be centered and ran by people who are diverse, right? What messages do you want leaders and employers to understand about immigrant talent and inclusion?
Being an immigrant is, as I mentioned, is a challenging journey, and you face a lot of both external stereotypes, like people look at your resume and they assume that your education is not good, your experience is not relevant, your English is not good. Maybe they even haven't met you, but they assume all those things. So for me, like I challenge everybody, say, when was the last time you interviewed somebody who never had a job in the States? And if you haven't done that, just have a chance, just talk and see, learn about the education, learn about experience, and think about what you're going to learn in your team and your organization from working with somebody different than you. And of course, also understand that when people come to a new country, they need that support. They need somebody who believes in them, somebody who mentors them, because yes, you need to learn and a lot of things to navigate. And for me, I'm still grateful to my first manager who hired me at the time that nobody else did it. And he hired me as a sole HR practitioner. At the time, I didn't even have experience in the States, but he trained me, he showed me everything. And then recently, I called him and I left a message, and then I said, like, I still, I'm very grateful and that you hired me at the time that nobody hired me. And then he told me that for him, English is and communication is not the same, and that communication is much more important than English. And he told me that he never regret hiring me. And then I wish, that more people will think the same way, that,
Yeah, that's
and he
powerful.
had a very diverse team. Like his team was the most diverse team because he had people from different walks of lives and backgrounds. And I wish that will be more leaders who will see the value working with people different, and also mentoring, helping people to grow, because yes, you need that help when you
Yeah.
come to a new country.
Definitely. I see that a lot in my companies, being able to hire people who are from different countries. You have to think about, where they're from and what is culturally normal and what's not, and just being cognizant of all the differences, but also being cognizant of what makes us all the same. One is being human, and
Yeah.
starting with empathy and starting with respect and starting with understanding that people need to feel like the people they need to be, right? As long as it's not disruptive to the workplace, right? And I don't mean disruptive as in it's not something that shouldn't happen. I know some folks need to pray throughout the day, right? That could be disruptive, but it's not disruptive. It is something that honors a human who feels authentically connected to that, and that's a part of who they are, who their family is, who their religion is, right? And that's very important to make sure that people feel honored and included. So let's talk about workplaces. Let's get into it because I know you've seen both sides of this, okay? The employee side and the consultant side. What do you think that organizations still get wrong about inclusion and belonging?
Well, I think, like now what they're getting wrong, that most organizations don't even have those conversations. Just a few years ago, was for everybody is so important, and then suddenly becomes a conversation that people avoid it. For me, inclusion, diversity, belonging, it never should be a political. It's a human issue, and I think it's almost harder for employees feeling that one day the conversation is important, nowadays it's almost dangerous, or everybody avoids it.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
that is, I think, that the first thing, seeing that this is a human conversation that needs to happen. And there are different ways, it's nothing wrong to talk about belonging, or people can help. It's nothing wrong to talk about cultural differences, and how can understanding other people from other backgrounds can help us to grow and can help other people to grow. And cultural differences is not only between different countries, there are a lot of cultural differences in the States. And for an immigrant, it's very important to understand different differences in United States that exist. And that we can tell their stories, but that we can hear other stories too, so we can understand what other people are going through. And yes, it was interesting for me, like when I start speaking about immigrant experiences. Initially, I thought, I just wanted to get more comfortable with public speaking. But then, like suddenly people say, like, look, this is so important. And yes, your message is not only for immigrants. I felt like an immigrant in my own country.
Yes.
Or I have disability, and you don't, but language can feel like disability. So understand that it's important for people with disability. Or I face different stereotypes, and yet it's still stereotypes. So talking about what it's like, even feeling, challenging being visible, or having imposter syndrome, or feeling that you don't belong, or how to find that belonging, is important conversation in any workplace.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be avoided. It should be encouraged, embraced, and empowered. And
Hey guys, what's up? This is T-Waz the TOC, and I want to tell you about the Giovanne Show. Now guys, this is a powerful platform where real conversations are happening.
My position should never exist. Homelessness has become a business. It's a big business, man. It generates a lot of money. Again, there's no accountability with that money. We manage homelessness, right? I never say ending homelessness. I think we should stop saying that. We can't even manage it well, but we're talking about ending homelessness, right? We've been saying ending homelessness for years, and we ain't even managing it well.
Coming soon,
The Giovanne Show. It's a marathon. So let's get it.
Yeah, it really makes a big difference. Like you said, people, it's a human issue. It's not, so it's universal. This conversation should be happening in every workplace around the world, even on Mars, Jupiter, Saturn,
yes,
right? As long as there are people who with, shared anatomy and shared, values and all of that, right? Like we have to make sure that we understand how to move things forward together, right?
yeah,
What's
yeah.
one simple change that workplaces could make tomorrow that would actually help international employees feel seen and valued?
Many time employers, think also like about those stereotypes that exist and external that needs to be addressed. But also we don't think that as an immigrants, many times we develop that imposter syndrome, that suddenly we don't consider opportunities, and we don't raise hands, or we don't even share what stories because it feels uncomfortable, or we think that it's not important. Or like even for me, like I thought like, being on the stage is not for me. Those opportunities are not for me, like podcast is not for me. But yes, when you think, why not? Everybody has story, everybody has their voice. So understanding how people overcome those barriers, that they will take opportunities in the organization. But I also think there are three things that actually helped me the most, and all those things can help an organization. First, like helping, mentoring is a game changer for anybody, but for immigrants it's must.
Yes.
Second, comfort of visibility and embracing that, companies sometimes restrict social media policies, but the companies who embrace employees' thought leadership and empowers employees' voices, we can learn about other cultures and increase more cultures of belonging, that people feel that your voices matters, and also brings a lot of value to organizations, brings more diverse customers, clients, brings visibility for organizations. So training your employees and empowering the employees to be visible on the social media can help employees to find that their voice, but also empowers, creates the cultures where people feel that they belong, their voices matters, the company considers their voice. And third, like what is really important, yes, talk about diversity, talk about cross-cultural differences, because as an immigrant, you cannot succeed if you think and you act like in your own country. You need to learn different ways, and you understand that certain things that you learn and work in your country might be not benefiting you here. And so talking about bringing that cross-cultural understanding and sensitivity in organization can help everybody else.
Yes. And what can immigrant professionals do to advocate for themselves without feeling like they're stepping out of line?
I think for many immigrants ask that question themselves. If you don't lead those conversations, who will? And if you don't speak, who will?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, if they're like, it's really nice, like sometimes coming to the organizations where we have a lot of different programs, but sometimes realizing that you are a person who should be maybe starting that program. I can give you one example. So time I got hired for the school, I always work for very international organizations, and then suddenly I get hired for organization that I'm realize that I'm only with a few immigrants, and the students ask me, "Are you a new Spanish teacher?"
Oh.
and then I tell my manager, is it okay for me to go and talk about my country, that the kids will know where I'm from?
Mm-hmm.
And my manager says, well, those kids are a little like challenging. You might not have a good experience. Teachers have difficult time, keeping, the attention for a few minutes, and then like maybe they will not, you may not have a good experience.
Yeah.
And I told, let me try it.
Yes.
And so I went there, and the first thing I thought, like, I'll just have like maybe 10, 15 minutes class talking about my country and talking about, and I felt like to talk about the school I went to. And the first thing I told them, I said, well, I went to a very different school that you are going. I grew up in the Soviet Union, and my school was different, very different than yours.
Yeah.
And then I asked, do you know what the Soviet Union? And then the kids didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, how can I tell about my school when kids have no idea what the regime was like? So I have to tell it. And then it was like fascinating that suddenly, like, I realized I went, via for an hour, because the kids continue asking questions, and we asked really important questions, very powerful questions, like, so how women are treated in your country, and how people different than you are treated in your country, and what things, what music you like, and what things you enjoy doing. And we got like really interested in, and how things are now, like, are you not afraid to speak now, and do you have a democracy now? And then, like, when I left, the teacher told that you really open the window for the kids to the world. We suddenly got interested into other cultures. And for me, it was fascinating that after that, the kids will start stopping in the corridor and say, oh, I find out about your basketball team. I did a research about your country.
Yes.
And I thought, how cool is that? And then I realized, also, like, I've done those talk in my kids' schools, but wasn't the same. And I realized that I live in Washington, D.C., like one of the most diverse cities in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And yet in some neighborhoods, in the kids don't we don't have like even white immigrants living there. We don't have, and for them they were like, for them was like maybe I was the first Eastern European and they met, and for them it was very interesting. And yeah, I think for the immigrants, to answer that question, you realize sometimes we don't think that our experience can be interesting or different, and we need to get comfortable sharing our own stories and sharing our own perspectives, or even leading the programs and organizations we want to see, because if we're not we, then other people don't think about, or they don't see, or like maybe even we don't see the value we can bring to the organization.
Yeah, confidence looks different when you had to fight for a voice in every room that you walk into, right? Once you realize that you can be confident in your story, then you definitely don't have an issue. I think you naturally figure out when is the best time to strategically put that story out there, right? And think that's probably like the best way to look at it when you're wanting to know whether or not you're going to step out of line. Because you're not stepping out of line by telling your story. You're not stepping out of line by being, again, human. It's so important to remember that part. Like,
Yeah.
we are all human and we share that. There's, wherever you're from, it doesn't matter, right? It matters about, who you are, and it matters that you share your story with others. So let's talk about the mindset, because it's one thing to survive, but it's another to thrive. How did being an immigrant shape the kind of leader that you've become today?
So yes, first, like if I haven't had an immigrant experience, I would never have found an organization, Immigrant Voice in HR, because I wouldn't have that experience, and I wouldn't and have that probably the same passion for helping other immigrants or refugees or people from other countries, because I wouldn't know what it takes. So definitely shaped me a lot. But for me, it's also like I want to empower people no matter the background. I feel very passionate about empowering everybody else to be comfortable with visibility no matter the background. I'm very passionate about helping, mentoring, and growing no matter the background, because all of us can learn and grow from each other, and like if you have somebody from a different background, you're more likely to learn more than somebody similar background. So yeah, definitely shaped me who I am and led to my passion, because I knew like it took me 20 years to tell my own story, and for many years it felt more comfortable to stay silent and to be more invisible, and so I know how challenging it can be. And yes, you make mistakes, and yes, maybe you are like many times you may say something that maybe other people will not understand or couldn't relate or judge you, but you also learn through those experiences too.
Right. Yeah, that's really true. It's vulnerability, and it's not a weakness. It's a strategy. It's a strategy to make you stronger, especially in leadership. It's saying I'm human, but I still handle my business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the most powerful lesson that you learned about belonging, not just in work, but in life?
I've challenged, myself, like to go to the rooms where I feel I don't belong, and learn from that experience. And I started reaching out a few years ago to the people whom I thought the least likely to respond to me. Like in the past, I didn't have in my network friends who like speakers, thought leaders, somebody who have podcasts, very influential CEOs, and I thought like those people will be less likely to respond. And I challenge, reaching out to them and asking for a mentoring session, and connecting. And what I've learned, actually, it was so helpful, because we definitely I got some challenging experiences to be on the podcast and to get comfortable being uncomfortable. A challenge to speak, a challenge to write, but I needed that push. And yes, now like I met of my first the person who invited to my first podcast, and he says, Solveiga, you already speaking in different events, in some global conferences, so you're already a speaker with people inviting you to speak. So it means that you're a thought leader in this area, and there are like more than 5,000 people are following you. So it means that you're influencing and you're following because your message resonates with you and you're making an impact. And you told me that all those things are not for you, and you're doing it.
Yes, already doing it.
And you're doing it. And then I thought, oh, that's incredible. Actually, yes, all those
Yes.
things that I thought that it's not for you, and for me, I'm doing it. And yeah, so I think for everybody else, I say that it feels more comfortable to be in the rooms where you feel like accepted. Like even like for many immigrants, we go and just maybe spend with people from your own culture, other immigrants, or and I say, no, go to the rooms that you may feel very uncomfortable, where you will be the only immigrant, where maybe everybody else will be high level CEOs, or maybe somebody else, or very different. And just go to those rooms and share your story and speak, because in those rooms, more likely, actually, your story is more important because you are the only one who can bring that perspective, and you bring perspective that other people can rely, the ones maybe who are not in those rooms.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really brings a different perspective that a lot of people value. And, it's scary
Yeah.
to want to tell your story, or to not know like what you should tell, but just get started. And every time, that's what it sounds like you're saying, Solveiga, is, every time you get better, right? Every time you speak at those conferences, you get better and more confident, and people probably are going crazy. Solveiga, Solveiga, like,
I don't know about that, but it's
it's a great story,
but you
it's
build that.
inspiring.
Yes, you build that courage one step at a time.
Yeah.
Every day you have to challenge your courage one step at a time.
Yeah.
And yes, maybe you can tell the same thing. Like maybe you can share, like like maybe what maybe help you to belong, and even like start this podcast and start conversations that you feel very passionate. Maybe like what was that tipping point for you?
Yes. I mean, honestly, I think it really comes from the same kind of core ideas that you have, is that, I am somebody who comes from a marginalized population, and I am not, I was born here. I was born in Seattle, and, but that doesn't mean that, my family wasn't brought here from another country, right? And I know that to be true. And so, I do feel out of place. It's one thing. Your story is, I'm coming from another country and I'm coming to America and I feel different. Well, I'm from America, and I feel very different all the time. I feel like my voice is not heard. And, you kind of learn to put your head down after a while, and not even put your head down. I'm strategic. So I can, look up the laws, look up the rules, look up the guidelines, all those types of things to try to figure out, like, how am I going to get through this quietly? Because I don't want to come in and be the stereotype, the angry black man, or, the defiant black man, or, to me, those are all the stereotypes that exist on a regular basis. Or, sometimes, people think that you're not educated. I have a master's degree and I plan on getting a doctorate, and, it doesn't, the things that people measure other human beings by is really trivial. Somebody could go to school at Harvard and then another person go to school somewhere else, but the person that didn't go to Harvard is excelling. So your story is just one that I think resonates so well because it reminds people of the differences that exist and how we let those differences create division between each other and between what we're really trying to do as a country or as a people, or sometimes it's in our neighborhood associations, or our neighborhood watch programs, right? People don't think about that. The other day I was thinking to myself, I just moved into a new area, and I don't want to be isolated. I want to have that feeling of belonging, even though a voice in my head tells me maybe I don't belong. It's too quiet over here. It's not what I'm used to. It's not, where I grew up. Because I grew up in Seattle and LA. So growing up in LA was a little rougher at times in the inner city, and gunshots and helicopters all night, and and that was just normal for me. I'm walking down the street as a teenager, and helicopters going around my head, and I'm just like, yep, they're looking for somebody. It's just a normal day. Now I'm in this neighborhood, and it's a little bit better. It's quieter, and it's probably much more diverse, multicultural. So I'm like, what do I have to offer? I'm a CEO, but who cares about that? So you downplay things, and a couple of my other guests have, brought that same sentiment out, is that you have these negative voices. I know, Meg Robbins, she says ants, right? Those negative, and those ants, those messages in your head where you're just automatic negative thoughts, right? You're automatically going to a negative thought. These people don't want to be around me. These people don't want to. What do I have to bring to the table? They've been CEOs, or their families have been CEOs for years, or it feels like you're taking a seat at a table where you weren't invited. That's the easiest way to put it. But a lot of the things you said, you just go in there and you give the best that you can, the best that you got, right? You whether it's a experience, or it's getting on that stage to talk about your experience, or if it's about just talking about the work that you do. Be proud of who you are and what you are. The number one thing for me also is that my parents always said that tomorrow's never promised. Now, I probably use it to a fault too much. That's going to be my fault. It's like, tomorrow's never promised, because I will overload myself with so many things. So starting my podcast is another thing that I overloaded. I know how I feel when I'm doing great work, and maybe the network and the representation and all of those things I'm still building. And I feel like in my lifetime, that's unfortunately going to be my story. It's not like I'm walking into something that's already built, and there'll still be issues, but it will probably be much more different, and so on this show, I want to make sure I highlight people whose story needs to be heard. You are inspiring to others, and your story is inspiring to others, and it tells it from a different perspective. A lot of the stories I bring on to the Giovanne Show, incredible people who have overcome so much, so many obstacles, and they're still standing and succeeding and excelling. And when you don't see yourself represented on television doing those things and making those moves and having followers and being a thought leader, you may not think that your possibilities are endless, because they are. They can be at any age. And so that's one of the reasons why I do the Giovanne Show, and several other reasons, but yes.
No, that's fascinating. And yes, like I know I was completely surprised, when you reached out to me, because I did one of my first podcasts was about my work with the homeless kids. And that happened like long time ago. And then you reached out and you said like, oh, I really like the work you did with the homeless kids, and I would love to talk with you. And that was, I thought, that's interesting. And yes, I and what you shared, it makes sense. And I think, people think that you can learn, only from the people who have a high level, but actually, when I worked with the homeless kids, I think that experience was the most, thought-provoking, the most impactful in my life. And I've learned from the kids. think they learn more than from me. And yes, that experience shaped me quite a lot
Yeah.
and helped me to understand, what we are going through. Or even like, how long, like even how long it can take to tell your own story because of the traumas you experience. It's not only that horrible that you can have like the most traumatic experience, but you don't even have anybody to talk with, and sometimes it takes years and years, and sometimes we even don't tell that story ever.
Yeah.
And also like was for me was so fascinating, how those kids, can be no matter what experience, their creativity, their independence, their like entrepreneurship skills, their leadership skills was really, and compassion too, like helping others. And yes, that definitely that experience was one of uh, the most impactful experiences I've ever had, and also I've learned from them as much or maybe more than they learn from me.
Yeah, I know children will do that for you.
Yes.
I have five of them, so I am
Mm.
learning every week and
Uh,
every hour. I sometimes
uh,
have to stop myself and just think, what is going to be my reaction here for the best impact, right? Because I don't want to repeat myself with five children, right? So, it's something that we're learning. And then I also worked in child welfare as well, so. You learn from having all of these different children. I had probably 50 or 60 kids on my caseload who were in child protective services. And, during that time, I had kids of all kinds of races and mixes, and I found it to be so exciting to have that job because I felt like I could help these kids to be able to express themselves in a way that was healthy, in a way that honored them, being somebody who came from the same, type of background, marginalized, or, I had a little stint with Child Protective Services when I was a kid as well. I was in Child Protective Services for a few months. I was away from home. And that experience changed me a lot too. So when I started working with children with the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families, that was life changing. And, everything from the kid with the afro whose foster mom is wondering what to do with the hair, what should they allow in the house, what should they not, and being the caseworker, I have that influence, to be able to say, hey, I can provide you a pamphlet. Maybe I can provide you with a connection. Latino children, right? How do we do their hair? How do we, respect their language? And if you don't speak Spanish in the house, maybe they should still learn, right? Can our government pay for the children to be able to have that class and have transportation? And can I drive them? So thinking outside the box, being innovative, because children are our future, right? We always say that. I know everybody says that, it's a song, right? It's a song, children are our future. But, it's the truth. And especially when they're coming from another country or they have barriers. Disabilities is another one of them. Just in general, you mentioned that earlier. Having a disability that makes you seem substantially different than others, and the way that they treat you, it's almost like you feel like you're from a third world country or another country or some other place or another planet. And so, I don't want that for them, and I don't want that for any human being. So I always bring that into the equation wherever I go. So you
Well,
have, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, thank you for sharing, and it's really like, and thank you for the work you've been doing. It's really important, and you touch a lot of people's lives. And yes, it's out of a little different, topic, but that's fine. This is how the conversations go. And
Yes.
yes, it was. Thank you for sharing, because yes, I don't like just talk myself. It's nice to hear the people who are coming and doing podcasts, we have like a lot of great stories, and listeners need to hear them as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I also like to bring people on that I can identify with. So we can have that conversation, because a lot of the things that, I'm not just bringing you on because I think, oh, well, you have a good story. No, I'm listening. I've read up, I've done my research, and I know that what you're selling is authentic. And, you and I can rest assured that we're on the same page about, what we're experiencing. Our experience is not the same, right? You have your unique experience and I have mine, but that's what makes the connection, right? That's what makes the difference. Now, let's talk about your future and your legacy that you're leaving behind, right? That's what we're talking about anyway. What do you see as the future of immigrant leadership? What's changing and what still needs work?
Oh, it's a lot of work needs to be done, but you change one conversation at a time. And just like in the past, if I was not comfortable when speaking on any stage, now I actually am looking to go to more and more stages, and yes, to bring those conversations to different countries, because immigrant experiences are similar in different other countries as well. I want, yes, I mentioned to change that negative narrative that exists about immigrants. I want, to provide tools and resources for organizations to create more compassionate, caring cultures that not only immigrants, but everybody feels empowered and succeed. I also like to help individual people to reach their full potential. And yes, I may not be able to change the whole world, but sometimes one conversation can make a difference. One story for somebody can make a difference. That all that matters. And I also want, to give back to my own country as well. And now also looking for different collaborative opportunities of people in my own country to give back, because I always lived here, and now it's nice that in the world that becomes more virtual and global, that I also can support some organizations who are coming from Lithuania to just here, and find the clients for them, or also for your businesses in the United States, or companies going to find opportunities back in Lithuania. So I'm trying in different ways to make an impact, and to an individual level, organizational level, and also on society level.
And it looks like you're doing that. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much for, just doing what you do and giving back to your community. Now, you have Solveiga Consulting. And so I want you to tell us a little bit more about your organization, your website, your mission, all of those things. What should our viewers know? How can we get in contact with you?
Sure. So people can connect with me on LinkedIn. This is where I post about upcoming different events, or things I do, or conversations I have, groups I lead that people can join. It's always nice to connect. Also, you can find me on my website, Immigrant Voice in HR. I will be very happy to be invited to speak in different organizations and audiences where people see the value of immigrant voices and perspectives. And I also hope to encourage others. This is how people can find, connect, and learn more about me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Solveiga Jaskunas, thank you for being here and for reminding us that leadership doesn't come from where you're born. It comes from what you build. And to everyone watching, if this episode hits you, share it with someone who's walking that same journey, because belonging isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. This is the Giovanne Show. Real people, real stories, real change. And I invite you to follow Giovanne, me, at Schachere.com, and check out our episodes and our podcasts, which are available everywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much, Solveiga. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know your story will change so many lives.
Thank you so much, Giovanne. Truly appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, what's up? This is T-Boz the TLC, and I want to tell you about the Giovanne Show. Now guys, this is a powerful platform where real conversations are happening. About social services, mental health, community, leadership. So guys, I don't ever bring up nothing unless I think it's good. And you know what? This is so needed. So y'all really need to check out the Giovanne Show. Okay? God bless.
You heard it here first. T-Boz says it best.
The Giovanne Show. It's a marathon. So let's get it.